Hello and welcome everyone to Ruslan Bortnik YouTube channel in English. My name is James Talberg, and as always, we're back with Ruslan Bortnik to give you weekly updates about what's happening in Ukraine in terms of the political updates, in terms of the foreign policy, in terms of the updates from the front line. Ruslan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you too, James. It's a pleasure for me. Thank you.
Ruslan, you have been one of the only analysts who've been saying that the negotiations might not go as fast and as productive as Trump would expect them to go. And I think this is exactly what has happened. The negotiations are not productive, not fast. We haven't seen the first promise that he's going to end this war in 24 hours. Moreover, we're getting to a mark of 3 months of a presidency, the symbolic 100 days of Trump's presidency, where people are going to start asking questions soon. What's happening with the Ukrainian-Russian conflict? What's happening with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? So in terms of what we're discussing, sorry, I got disconnected a little bit. Are we still live?
Yeah.
Technical issues. Yep, sorry about that. So in terms of the negotiations between the US and Russia, not Trump, but a few journalists came out and said that Trump is not happy. He's angry because the negotiations are at pause, or Russia is potentially demanding something that the United States is not happy with. Can you link us into what's happening behind the scenes? What are those signals that Trump is trying to send via the mass media, and why he's potentially not happy with the negotiations?
Well, it's not so easy to explore the situation because we have a very dangerous segmentation of negotiation process now. And we have this segmentation of two main paths of negotiation between Russia and United States. One way it's a strictly Russian-United States negotiation, and this day the special representative of Putin, Mr. Kirill Dmitriev, was in Washington. And they had a very fruitful dialogue about the economical cooperation between the United States and Russia. And another path of this dialogue, it's on Ukrainian-Russian war. And it looks like this path is blocked. And sides of the dialogue of Russia, United States, and Ukraine reached some kind of deadlock in this situation, because Russian demands on the ceasefire or in general ceasefire are not accepted, are not fulfilled by United States side. If you are talking about the ceasefire or the sea truce, Russian demands are on shifting of sanctions on the Russian agricultural sector, including the Russian Agricultural Bank, fleet, and insurance, and so on. And these demands were made to the Trump directly, to the United States administration, and they are not fulfilled. They are not accepted, and so it looks like the Russian is not also going to change its position, and this is deadlock. If we are talking about the general ceasefire, I want to remind also Russian demands of stopping the military aid of Ukraine, stopping the mobilization in Ukraine, and so on. Everything that Putin demanded from the United States and Ukrainian side, like a precondition to the Russian agreement or the ceasefire. These demands also ignored. And we have a deadlock which could be overcome only by the very powerful decision of political leaders. Somebody needs to take all the responsibility of this decision on the lifting the sanctions, or the changing the position, or the stopping the military aid, and so on. And no one of the leaders, not Trump, not Putin, nor even Zelensky, are ready to risk their public face, accepting these foreign enemy demands in this moment. So this is only two segments of this segmentation process, but also due to the rumors, there are much more segments of this dialogue behind the stands. There are another groups and other people which are continuing this dialogue, this closed field room negotiation behind the scenes. And this is very dangerous process, because I think the agreement could be very rapid. It could happen very occasionally, and it could not include Ukrainian case of Ukrainian war, and it would be, of course, very temporary if we are talking about the lasting of this agreement. Very hard and very difficult situation, but of course there is no way to the fast peace now, and I think Trump reached a very significant obstacles on his approach toward to the peace, and he is a very risky and very hard position because
he's been pushed to the wall.
Yes, because the mass media and political opponents are asking about the results of his foreign policy toward Russia and Ukraine also, and he is not able to present the pure success in it. Only the statements which are questioned by Russian and Ukrainian sides at this moment. Moreover, in general, to be honest, Trump is not able to show any clear success in other fields also, if you are talking about foreign policy. Even the preliminary success on the Israel and so is not also clear what is going on. The military operation of Israel is going on. If you are talking about the Panama, Canada, Greenland, everything which Trump promised and made a very high statements in the beginning of his presidential term, it's very unclear if you are talking about the achievement of United States goal in this situation. Moreover, this question about the new tariffs, economical tariffs, a new world trade war, what we said before in our previous podcast, it also a very unclear situation with very unclear consequences and results in the end. So this all general pressure towards Trump is growing up, and it makes a negative influence in his public reputation, and it could make Trump very angry and very sharp if we are talking about the international policy in the future.
And actions that he can take. It sounds like he picked up way too much that he could have potentially carried, and that's what's causing all that frustration. But I want to go back to the situation between the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. In my understanding, what has happened, Russians basically have caught Trump and Trump's administration on their will to finish that conflict fast, and basically taking advantage of it because he promised to finish it fast. So they're like, okay, you want to finish that conflict fast? We're going to spike on you all the crazy demands that you have to fulfill in order for us to participate in that peaceful negotiation. Is that the case in simple words?
Besides a lot of very positive words from Trump to Putin, from Putin to Trump, the level of distrust between the United States and Russia is still extremely high. So the Russian demands, for example, for the Black Sea deal, that demands exactly the same which Russia sent to Biden's administration in 2023. So in very exact calculation, we don't see the significant changes in position,
in Russian position.
Yes, and sides. That's a big problem. Russia is, I think it looks like Russia is trying to check the Trump and his ability to make a concessions towards Russia. Russia is not trusting United States at all. Russia is afraid to become in the situation of Minsk agreement and previous negotiation with the United States, which were not very successful. That's the problem. Somebody needs to make the first step in this road. Even they're risking by its own public face and
political reputation.
Yeah.
Ruslan, but at the same time, I'm curious, why does Russia feel so comfortable to bring on the table such unacceptable demands that they want, the United States to take the first step into the compromise?
Maybe they are not. Maybe they are not unacceptable. It's like a test for a new relation. Russia is trying to test United States and Europe
to check the ground.
To check have their position changed or not, or it is still a game, or diplomatic game, a military game. Russia is not ready, and Ukraine also, to be honest, is not ready to accept just a truce or ceasefire without any concessions, without any achievements in relations with the United States. But it looks like the Trump is willing to achieve only a ceasefire or a truce, and just nothing. And it looks like Trump thought that his words and his public position will be enough to push the sides to accept a ceasefire without a real political concessions, doings, and so on. But it doesn't work.
But at the same time, Ruslan, why does Russia feel so comfortable to keep demanding what they've been demanding before? What if the United States are not going to be ready to take that step towards changing their relationship on a practical side of the situation with Russia, and they will just keep the escalation as is? I'm asking that because Russia is not doing well either. Like, they're still under economical sanctions. They're also losing people. They're also in stagnation. So if the conflict will continue as is, Russia is not winner either. So from that perspective, it is also a win for them if they will achieve some sort of deal with the United States. So from that perspective, why they're feeling so comfortable to increase the level of demands to the point that it can be potentially not acceptable from Trump's administration and lose the negotiation completely?
Russia doesn't feel very comfortable or even sure about its future. Russia is not confident in its future also, but Russia thinks that she still has resources for continuation of the war, resources which Ukraine doesn't have, for example. And at the same time, Russia is watching how the Western world is changing, how it's breaking in some parts,
splitting into different directions. Yeah.
Yes, and the American part and another part, and so on. Russia is also in strategic thinking. Russia is also believes that Trump could be a very Trump will be a very big destroyer for United States. And in any case, the Trump's doing in the United States will lead this country to the intensification of internal fights and competition, political competition. So it means the United States will not be so deep involved in international doings, international relations. And the United States will leave not only Ukraine, but maybe even Europe in the future, because of losing the interests and resources to continuation his international globalization presence in Europe. So Russia believes that everything is going on in the right direction, very slowly, through a lot of loses and suffers from the Russian society also. But it's an existential fight for Russian elites, like for Ukrainian society. So they are ready to wait. They are ready to suffer much more, and they are ready to wait some more months, even years, and to see how the Western world and United States will be changed during this erosion of world order.
While Russia is confident in their strategic plan in regards to the future and they're ready to suffer more and they're ready to continue that war, Ukraine, on the other hand, is not doing so well. And there is a lot of influx of information in the media that the election can potentially happen in Ukraine. What is happening on the Ukrainian track? How's the situation there in terms of their possibility to continue that war without potentially having an aid coming from the United States and Western allies?
Now Ukraine is backed by European partners, especially France, Great Britain, and Swedish country, and northern country like Sweden and other countries. They are backing Ukraine a lot, and they are changing the United States on Ukrainian track in bigger part. They are not able to fully substitute,
replace it,
replace or substitute United States on Ukrainian track, but they are backing Ukraine now very, very much. And the Ukrainian government also believes that he is able to continue this policy for the next 6-9 months, but it's very long time for the situation in Ukraine, which is changing very fast, very dramatically. So Ukraine is also still waiting. Ukraine is also still trying to overweight the enemies and this urgent situation, this political international instability. Ukraine is hoping that United States will be also backed over to Ukraine after the worsening, the possible worsening relation with the Russian Federation. Ukraine is trying, and Zelensky tries look better in Trump's eyes than Putin. And he's trying to overplay it, to win this game towards Putin in the eyes of the Trump. So Ukraine has some confidence for some time, but of course, if war is going on for the years, the lack of resources in Ukraine and lack of American presence and support, because now we have only the continuation of the American support, which decision on which was made during the Biden's administration. We have no one new package from the Trump's administration, and it's a question of time when that resources will be exhausted, where that packages will be exhausted. After the losing of United States support, the military situation of Ukraine will be, of course, worsening very fast. So Ukraine has the smallest gap of the time if we are comparing Russia and United States. But Ukraine is not ready to go into very deep concessions because it's a question of political stability, political face of the government and Zelensky, and other things.
Ruslan, I think we can observe on this example with the Russian-Ukrainian conflict how the hybrid international wars are looking like, where it's extremely hard to negotiate a peaceful solution when so many players are involved and we don't have a clear and bright winner in this war. And that's why, in my opinion, negotiations are stuck or at pause. Or
it's not only the problem that we don't have a winner. There's a problem we don't have even a draw in this war. For example, Korean example, it was a clear example of draw in this war. But in this war, we don't have even the draw because Russia believes that she is able to achieve much more by the military instruments. And Ukrainian government is not also ready to recognize this draw, the possible draw. We are not able to decline our demands of the territorial integrity and so on and so on. That's the problem.
Absolutely. And that being said, that can probably last for quite long time before there will be a situation when one side is actually winning and the other side can accept the loss. How long do you think that can continue in regards to that trend where nothing is clear and understandable how the situation can end? And if there is maybe any internal conversation that you've been part of or you've heard your colleagues talking or other analysts, how do they expect, and you including, this conflict at the end to be resolved? Is there going to be a clear winner and a clear loser, or they will be able at some point with political will and motivation to create that negotiation path that will lead to a potential end without a catastrophic loss of one of the sides?
To find the fruitful solution of this conflict, of this war, we need to rebalance the geopolitical balances in the Eastern Europe. We need to make new security, new economical, new political balances in this region. If we are not going to do it. It looks like for nowadays, for
that's
the
what
West,
we can observe now.
Yeah. That it means that war will go on, and it means, of course, it could be frozen for some times, maybe even some years, due to high political agreements. But in the end, after these years, this war will arise again, because the problems or which leaded us to this war are not resolved, and it will not be resolved. We need to rebalance, and we need a very strong, very responsible geopolitical thinking on this stage. We need a new Kissinger in this situation to find the solution. And I think the full scale the winner in this war may be in a few years, not very fast. But to be honest, it even doesn't matter who will win this war. If there will be a full-scale winner in this war, it will make dramatical changes to all the political situation in all Eurasia. It may provoke the other wars in other regions, even the bigger wars. Yes, and this way is for nowhere. We need to find solution before. We need to rebalance this region in security and political and economical term. I am sure that we need to reopen Ukraine, to bring this country back to the role of trade country, of transfer country. Ukraine earned in previous years before the war, before the 2014, on this role of transfer or trade
as
country,
a logistical hub.
Yes, brought for Ukraine from 40 till 50 billion United States dollars every year to Ukrainian economy. Not only because of Russian energy resources, but also from Silk Road, from the China, from the roads from Turkey to the north of Europe, and so on. We need to rebuild this region. Of course, we are able to follow this conflict for some time. For some, the price for it will be some concessions, formal and informal concessions from the United States and Ukraine, maybe from the Russian side also. But it will be very temporary resolution, which will lead this region to the all days scary of continuation of the war, and will left our country in the situation of unpredictable future. No way.
Ruslan, I think you've mentioned a very important point that I think it's worth repeating it and making it very clear that if the parties that are participating now in that Ukrainian-Russian war and the conflict as a whole, if they're not achieving a solution that will include a geopolitical rebalance, like a new geopolitical agreement, and new security guarantees for all the sides that participate in that conflict, economical agreements, political agreements, and so on and so forth. If this is not achieved and that war continue as is, with sometimes being frozen, if there's a political will, sometimes more active, but it will still continue because it's not fully resolved, at the end, it can escalate into either a bigger war in the region or trigger in general global conflicts because it haven't been resolved. Is that the situation that we're living in?
Yeah, we are now in it already, unfortunately, because there were a lot of attempts just to freeze this war, just to find the truce or ceasefire. For example, Minsk agreements. Minsk agreements, which were made in 2014, 2015. There are two agreements. The main goal of this was to make a ceasefire. Let's make ceasefire. They will move out the troops. Then we are trying to increase the level of trust between the sides. Then we are backing up the Donbass, controlled by Russia, back to Ukrainian lands. So it was a very classical approach to find the solution of the conflict between the countries, or to find the solution to the so-called separatistic conflicts. But it didn't work. It didn't work. And now it looks like they are trying to repeat the Minsk agreement. They are trying to resolve the small issues and then to build the trust, and then go further till the end to the highest level. But
that can never happen.
It doesn't work also for nowadays. We need a small decision. Maybe we need a summit of the heads of the state, the personal physical presence of Putin, Trump, and Zelensky, maybe somebody else in this summit. And we need we need the situation when the leaders are looking to the eyes each other and shaking the hands, when they are taking the personal responsibility for some agreements, for some goals, for some directions of the movement, and so on and so on. Because this phone diplomacy, or this mediator diplomacy, when we are saying some people to meet another, some responsible people, but we are not meeting together, it doesn't work in such a long-lasting conflicts like Ukrainian-Russian conflicts, because the level of distrust is extremely high, and all the sides made a lot of scam to each other during the last 10 years.
Ruslan, I think we've mentioned very important points in regards to that conflict, in regards how the situation can potentially develop. So I really want to stop here just so people can observe and understand what is happening, because I do think it's very important. But friends, we will be back next week, potentially even earlier, with an updates about the situation in the front line. So please stay with us, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or any specific topics that you would like myself and Ruslan to discuss, let us know. Ruslan, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll be back with more updates next week.
Thank you, James. Thank you, friends, and see you.